I mean, I've been in the world of sports and storytelling for almost 20 years, and I don't think I've ever come across a team quite like the Celtics. And, they, from the very beginning, from Walter Brown and Red Auerbach and Kusi and Russell, that foundation of the organization. I mean this, like it still is present today. Like that flame has not died. Everyone we spoke to, I mean, even just sitting down with Jalen and Coach Mazzulla, they have such a deep appreciation and a reverence for everything that came before them, which at first, you're just like, this has to be BS, right? Like, there's just no way. Celtic pride, family, all these things. I'm telling you, it's real, when you have someone like Red Auerbach, who was there for 50 years, like ingrained in everything that the organization does.
Celtics City chronicles the remarkable saga of the Boston Celtics, the NBA's winningest and most storied franchise. From the team's founding as one of the league's original members to its triumphant 2024 championship, the documentary series delves into the fierce rivalries, defining moments, and societal forces that have shaped the organization's enduring legacy. We have the pleasure in welcoming co-executive producer and showrunner Gabe Honig and director Lauren Stowell of Celtics City onto Hoopsology. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, Justin, good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. We've reviewed a lot of documentaries, interviewed a bunch of producers and directors of other sports documentaries, specifically in basketball. So it's a pleasure in having you on. So let's just delve into it. And I want to get your guys' origin story and how to put this documentary, this docuseries together. Because as I just mentioned, the Celtics is a historical franchise all over the world. And I'm sure just to narrate within just the episodes that you have was a pretty Herculean task. So can you just describe just the blueprint, how you laid this docuseries foundation down to create the final product?
Yeah, it was a really incredible 2-year journey, Justin. Gabe and I, from the very beginning, as we started discussing, the initial treatment that, Words and Pictures and Bill Simmons, Connor Shell had kind of presented to me, early in the process of telling this definitive story, right? From start to finish, from 1950 to wherever the Celtics would end up at the end of our production timeline, was also going to be part of that story. So when Gabe and I started, really looking at all of the layers, it was really incredible. I mean, just the initial treatment, I thought I knew the story of the Celtics. I know Gabe and I talk about this all the time. As we started to really peel back those layers, we realized, wow, this is really something special, not just from the storytelling standpoint of just the incredible, icons of the game and of history in the NBA and in American culture, but there's just so much depth, and the connections that we saw that we were able to make once our entire team was on board and we started doing our really intensive research phase. We really started to realize some of the incredible parallels between the Celtic story and America's story. So that's really how we began the journey, was always looking, in each decade and each episode, in every storyline, how we could connect it to a greater story of the history of this country.
So I want to ask, since my dad was born and raised in Boston, huge Celtics fan, lived in Malden, and lived in Lynn, Massachusetts as well. This is going to hit home personally to him, and just growing up hearing just his stories. He always talked about the racial dynamic within Boston. So can you kind of talk about how this documentary reflects that, just through the 60s and 70s to now? Because I think not only for my dad who lived there and is a Celtics fan, but also just players in the NBA, that seems to be just a difference between other teams within the National Basketball Association. So can you just discuss that just in terms of just the documentary chronicalizing just the Celtics in terms of the relationship just with the racial dynamic within Boston itself?
Yeah, Justin, I think that's something that we knew, was a huge part of the story. The relationship between this team and the city, and the city and the team, and that history, which is really complicated. I mean, I'm just going to flat out say it. We knew that from the very beginning. I know Gabe and I and our team, we had a lot of questions. I grew up in New England. I'll let Gabe talk about his experience being as a New Yorker. But we had our own, preconceived notions of what Boston was. Obviously, I spent time there, but I never really understood where some of the perceptions of the city lied. Just the idea that we hear even someone like LeBron James saying that Boston is racist. Why does it have this reputation? Is it earned? Is it not earned? What's fair? So we really did spend a lot of time, as much as we could, with all the other things that we had going on with this story, to be able to look at some of those key moments in Boston's history. You'll see it especially in episode 3 with the busing mandate and how that really divided the city. The kind of longstanding segregation that existed between the neighborhoods, specifically Roxbury and South Boston. We spend some time trying to unpack that. But we also want to look at Jalen and Jason's experiences, as, modern day athletes living and buying homes and raising their kids in this city. We spoke to them about that. So it really was there was no way to separate the two things, Justin. I think we always knew that this was a story about the Celtics, but also a story about the city.
Yeah, and yeah, as Lauren said, I'm a New Yorker, so you know, I came into it with all my preconceived notions about Boston as a city. I'm through the sports lens. I had family there, spent a little time there, but never much to really get a sense of the everyday life in Boston. But as a sports fan, yeah, like Boston and New York fans are like just they're born and raised to hate each other. And yeah, in my mind, I don't know where it started. I just always knew that Boston was labeled a racist city. And I think like coming into the project, when I read the treatment after talking to Lauren, like that's what intrigued me so much was to find out why. Like, why does Boston have this reputation? Why does everybody outside of Boston think this way? And do the people inside of Boston agree or disagree with that label as well? And with any good documentary, like you go through a sense of you want to go through that process of discovery. You want to always ask why. It's not just what happened, why? Why did it happen? And it was just incredible that when we sat people down, the 98 people we sat down, Lauren, I can't even remember like anyone who didn't bring up racism in Boston with, even unprompted. Like it was one of those things that just like came up organically all the time. And yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, I think we've accomplished the why, especially players, on why they felt that Boston had this reputation. And I think we also try to present that question as is it deserved? Is it earned?
So can you discuss the members of the Celtics over the year and the relationship with the team, just in terms of the dynamic? Do you find that it was different compared to other teams, not only within the NBA but just other sports as well? Like, what is that relationship with player to the organization, and how has that evolved over time?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I've been in the world of sports and storytelling for almost 20 years, and I don't think I've ever come across a team quite like the Celtics. And they, from the very beginning, from Walter Brown and Red Auerbach and Kusi and Russell, that foundation of the organization, I mean this, like it still is present today. Like that flame has not died. Everyone we spoke to, I mean, even just sitting down with Jalen and Coach Missoula, they have such a deep appreciation and a reverence for everything that came before them, which at first you're just like, this has to be BS, right? Like there's just no way. Celtic pride, family, all these things. I'm telling you, it's real, And when you have someone like Red Auerbach who was there for 50 years, like ingrained in everything that the organization does. Like, yeah, his name is on the court and we saw that, but we really felt it from the top down, from Wick and Rich Gotham, like the first meetings Gabe and I had with the Celtics about, moving forward and doing this film. They wanted to talk about the history. How much are you paying homage to the, the founding fathers of our organization? They have such deep respect. So I think it does. We saw it in every player that we interviewed. There's like this bond that they have. And I think a lot of it is just like this, again, like appreciation for the uniqueness of something that has lasted for 77, almost 78 years now.
You know, Lauren, you just reminded me of that first meeting we had. You know, Laura and I had like only met in person a couple times. The project was only like a few weeks old, and we get summoned up to Boston to 100 Causeway to meet with the president of the organization, and we think maybe the owner, but we're not really sure. And we go up there, and looking back on it, what's interesting is the elevators open up and they have the banners, which makes sense. If you go to any major sports team who's won championships, that's obviously they're most prideful about that. And there's always going to be a World Series trophy or banners or whatever, right, hitting you in the face. But like after that, what I found, like thinking back on it and being up there a few times, was like the focus on the people. We have the conference. The conference room that's reserved for us is the Bill Russell conference room. There's a Red Auerbach room. You go into the offices and it's about the people. There's not so many like championship. There's not trophies everywhere. It's about the other players. You look over here, you see a little thing from KG. Shaq's sneaker is there. And then we meet with the upper management of the Celtics, including Wick, the owner, Rich Gotham, the president, and 9 other people in the executive team. And they all go around the table and introduce themselves. And they also say how long they've been at the organization. And I think like the shortest amount of time was 9 years. Our main point of contact at the Celtics, Jeff Twiss, has been there for, I think this is his 44th season, which is incredible, inconceivable in North American sports, especially when owners change and things like that. And so, yeah, because of that, it is a real family vibe.
Did your opinions change of the Celtics once the project was completed? Like, did you have any preconceived notions, positively or negatively, that you entered in creating a project that when it was all said and done, some things changed your mind just through just your research and just through the interviews and putting it together?
That's a good question. Um, I think I just didn't have as much appreciation, like specifically my kind of era of when I was really like rooting for the Celtics was, the 07-08 season. And just like I went to UConn. So Ray Allen, I grew up watching UConn sports in the 90s. And, there wasn't as much to cheer for with the Celtics during that time. And I was just so excited when Ray came to the Celtics and to see KG and Pierce and, the big three. I don't think I really understood it until we started talking to that group, just how special that group was. Doc Rivers was just an incredible interview. Kevin, Paul, Big Baby, Kendrick. These guys, they really they achieved something really special. But I think the bond that they had, I don't think I really appreciated it. They had a lot of fun too. It was like when basketball was fun, but the rivalries were real. And, to see that in, the mid 2000s, to see and hear these stories again and kind of relive it from a different angle. I just thought it was like, my perception of it was a manufactured team. It was like they brought these guys together, they won a championship, they did what they had to do, but there was so much that went into it. And KG was such the heart of it. And I think that was really surprising to me, just to hear how deep those bonds went.
Yeah. For me, it was as a Knicks fan, growing up a Knicks fan, like every team is more successful. So like the 18 banners, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I'm lucky if I ever see one championship in my lifetime as a Knicks fan. But the thing that like completely blew my mind was how progressive the Celtics were, how they move the country forward, how they move the sport forward. Because yeah, again, like there's all these preconceived notions. There's this idea, and growing up in the 1980s, the Celtics were considered the white team. Bird, McHale, Ainge, all those guys. And like, yeah, that was my preconceived notion that the Celtics were a white team. And then you come to find that first organization to draft African-American player, the first all-black starting five, the first black head coach in North American sports, Bill Russell. That's, that to me was like a huge epiphany. And, that happened very early on. I think one of our first conversations with Lauren, and what drew me to it is like, yeah, why aren't the Celtics talked about in the same way that the Brooklyn Dodgers are in terms of being, agents of change in this country?
Yeah.
No, I find that really interesting, and not only being heralded just for their impact on just social economic issues in this country, but also as a sports franchise. I feel like they're not talked about with the elite, even though they have all this history. Do you know why that is? Even when the Celtics win the title, I don't get the sense that they're, in terms of media attention, it's a huge media markets, but other teams like New York, I would say the Lakers as well. If they won the title, I think they would get more media attention. I'm just curious. And I think this goes for even, you mentioned the big three with Ray Allen and Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett when they won as well. I got the sense that they were still kind of not being given the credit as they deserve, even though they are the preeminent franchise in all of basketball, I would say, maybe other than Los Angeles. So I'm just curious why they're so underrated, not only for the success on the court, but also off the court as well.
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, I don't know that we fully understand, or I know personally, I don't really know why that's the case. I know why what Gabe just talked about, how they've, the Celtics have kind of been at the forefront of, pushing society forward with making these decisions to, again, draft the first black player, head, player coach, first black starting five. Those things I feel like were never done in a way that it wasn't for the attention. It wasn't for the sake of Red Auerbach wasn't making those decisions so that he could hold a press conference. We never found it. We never found that press conference. Even the press conference of Bill Russell being named head coach was about the merits of him being ready for this position and what an honor it was for him to be able to lead this group as Red, stepped into a new role. It was never about him being the first black head coach in North American sports. That was not really what Red was, anchoring to while it was covered. I just don't know that the organization itself pushed those narratives. And that's why I think we are both excited from Gabe's perspective, my perspective. We're excited that we're able to put it in this context, to include those huge kind of, societal milestones and, facts that a lot of people don't know, and put it in the greater context of, their success and the 18 championships, what's beneath that. So that's how, I see it. I don't know, Gabe, if you see it differently.
No, it's a question that we threw around all the time, and we asked dozens of people. It's like, can the Celtics be cool? Because I think, like, Justin, part of what you're getting at is like, yeah, media attention also is like coolness and that jersey. And yeah, I think that's part of that's part of the Celtics story, is like, what does that jersey represent to everybody, Celtic fans and non-Celtic fans alike? And I think that's a huge question and a huge theme within the 9 hours. And did we answer it? Did we answer definitively, overtly? No, but if you watch, you'll see all sides of that conversation. And I think that's what's so interesting, is that there is no one answer to it. But that being said, one thing that, our executive producer, Bill Simmons, would always talk about is that, when the Celtics play road games, you are seeing more and more and more Celtic jerseys in those stands. I think Bostonians have kind of spread out. The Boston, sports renaissance of the 21st century, much to my chagrin. The Celtics haven't, they've only won two, right? In the last, in the 25 years of this century. So yeah, they win again this year. I have a feeling that their Q rating will go a little higher. Will they ever be as popular as the Lakers? I don't know. But I always had, even before this project, I'd always considered them a Tiffany organization in North American sports. They're on that short list.
Can you discuss what surprised you about making this docuseries? Was there anything that shocked you from your interviews or research that came across, or any stories that you might have heard?
Oh, Gabe, do you have one? I have a couple.
Yeah, I'll say, Robert Parrish,
Mm.
you know, he when he was playing there, and he admits it in the film that, yeah, he walled himself off, and I didn't really know what to expect when we met with him, and he was interviewed, and we were lucky enough to have Jackie McMullen, collaborating with us on this, and her and Robert have a great rapport, and Jackie was there, she did the interview, and Lauren and I were there, and you don't, I'm like, okay, like, I'm curious. And I mean, laugh out loud funny. This guy was like Mr. Personality. And, you know, again, you go back to preconceived notions, he's stoic on the court, very short in with media answers when he was playing. And that was all by design. He kind of kept everybody, he even said, including the organization, at arm's length. So that was an amazing surprise. And yeah, as I think, Bill has said in numerous times, like, if there's going to be an MVP of the documentary, Parrish might be in the running for it. He just jumps off the screen, and was so generous with his time and truth.
And I would say that's a good one, Gabe. That was one that surprised all of us, I think, and will surprise Celtics fans, I think, because he's never had that I've seen or that we've seen a platform to really speak his truth in the way that he did in this film. I think one of the other things that did surprise me, over the course of our production was just I I had a preconceived notion that Bill Russell's experience in Boston was just all bad. Like, the vandalism of his house, the death threats, the things that I think we know are widely known, that he was not treated well in the city. And he has a complicated relationship with the city. But what we also were able to discover was that he was in, the black neighborhoods. They loved Russell. Roxbury and Dorchester, Slade's Bar and Grill that he used to own, a black in the, black business section of Roxbury that's still there. We took Satch Sanders, who was drafted in 1960, played alongside Bill. We took him to Slade's. He hadn't been there in 30 years. And just like there was a lot of joy, there was a lot of stories from people that we came across in the streets as we were filming that remembered the Black Celtics coming into the neighborhoods in the 60s, like, Willie Knowles and Satch and these guys were visible. And I think that's something that often isn't talked about. Russell had a jazz radio show that he hosted every Sunday, and played his favorite songs. And like, people were telling us these stories, and I was like, I've never heard that side of Black Boston embracing, Bill and the love that he received and what he meant to so many people there. So that was surprising to me because it's just not often talked about.
Final question for both of you. What do you want viewers to take away when they're done seeing this entire project? Like, is there any kind of looming themes that you hope that viewers keep in their minds as they reflect on viewing this entire project?
I I hope that people take away from this kind of the importance of history, the importance of tradition, what that really means in a real day-to-day living your life way. Um, I really feel like as you watch these 9 hours, you're going to see people, humans who connect with each other in a way that I do feel like we need right now. I think we need a little bit of that in society right now, is that, there is a lot of unity. These are men and women who, supported this team, who are from every walk of life. And I know it sounds cheesy, but they all came together for a common goal. And even today in this current team that, Missoula's team right now, these guys, they really believe in this tradition and they respect and honor that history. And I think we need it. We need that. So I hope people it resonates the importance of that, of tradition and history.
Yeah, I mean, that's yeah. Lauren said it pretty good there. Red Auerbach in the film, points up at the banners and says these all represent people. And for us trying to tell this story, it's the easy part is what happened. The hard part is why and who did it and why are they wired that way. And I think we were really successful in getting to the why and getting to know the human beings that played a part in the 77 years of history here. What made them tick. It's sometimes trite to say with these sports documentaries that like sports is life, but people tend to forget that like human beings are the ones who are doing the thing. They're doing the thing you're celebrating. And so like, yeah, these are all humans and yeah, they might be great on the court and they might have a bad day off of it. And, we were really interested in finding out what was going on, after the games were over or before they started. And I think by doing that, it puts all those successes and failures on the court into better perspective. And I think gives you a sense of why this organization is special.
Lauren and Gabe, thank you very much. Truly appreciate it. Can you let our audience know where they can find you on social media, whatever projects you want our audience to be aware of as well?
Yeah, you can find me, L Stowell, on Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn, and yeah, and Words and Pictures website as well. Yep.
Yeah, I'm on X, Twitter, whatever it's called these days, at Gabe Honig. And yeah, I hope everybody enjoys the journey we're about to take you on starting on March 3rd.
Thank you very much. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks.